Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Woman of Inspiration Awards, and this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast, where we interview women of inspiration who are inspiring others to greatness. We're making an impact locally, nationally, and globally. Now, today, we have a special guest, Lindsay Sill. Lindsay, you are calling in from Kelowna, BC. And Lindsay is an entrepreneur and an executive. Now, you are also a new Universal Women's Network National Ambassador. We are so excited to have you part of our team and even more excited to be talking to you today. So thank you so much for joining us, Lindsay.
Thanks so much for getting me out of my sweatpants and inspiring me to put on a little bit of makeup today. So thanks for this.
And this is actually 2 times in a row for us. We actually had the Leading with Change panel earlier this afternoon, and you joined us again. So I think your computer's like heating up there on the Zoom canvas. But so great that you're able to join us. And there's lots to talk about today. Of course, we talk about working from home, changing that shift. You're now working from home as your full-time. We're talking about how life has changed. And I was just sharing how, having kids right now and working has been a big challenge. And your full-time is with the focus on the kids right now. So you have a flip from where it has been before. So let's start with your journey, because you have a really unique story. So maybe let's start there. I'll let you begin where you like.
Oh, right. Yeah. So raised in small town BC and born in Nelson and lived a lot around the West Kootenays in Castlegar. Somewhat, my parents raised me with a lot of love and a caring, fabulous environment. But there was definitely a lot of obstacles to overcome. And when I look back, my memories of my childhood are very different than my siblings, and it's just kind of what really resonates with you and what you remember about your journey. So any of my family members watching this may dispute, how I remember it, but it's my memories and I'm entitled to those. So I learned a lot growing up in the household. I was raised with good values, but there was a lot of kind of negative inspiration around me. But I'm grateful that I had be able to experience that, so that now it has shaped me and made me a more resilient and stronger person as a result. When your parents sit you down, I'll just dive right in here, but
dive right in. I'm making sure that my microphone is completely ready to grab all of this, because you have a great story. So please do share, and no filters.
Yes.
It's all about being relatable and sharing your journey. So
for sure. So lived with my mother, who was a single mother for a very long time, raising 3 kids. I have a half brother and then a sister. And father working union job, shift work, a little bit kind of like that. Both parents ended up remarrying, and then one of them divorced, and so now have step parents kind of all over the place. But then I guess my family is larger as a result, so that's good, but definitely hard to balance the relationships. And I would say that I'm kind of the pillar in the family, in the sense that I'm the only individual that actually speaks to all of the other individuals. Whereas my father, he has had horrible, he's had cancer, 2 different types, malignant mesothelioma from working at the asbestos mines of Tetcominco. And going through a lot, but as a result, he kind of takes that out on the family members, and then, nobody's talking to each other. And I'm the only one who has an individual point of contact with everyone. So and that's kind of how it's always been, because I'm able to overcome things, bite my tongue, and just move on with relationships. So even though faced with, a lot of mental health problems within my family, alcoholism, narcissism, I'm not going to name names here, but all of that, at the time, I didn't really realize what I was going through. And then you look back and it's like, wow, how did I get through that? And it kind of explains how I am the way I am today. So one could imagine that when you're sat down when you're 14 years old and told, we can't get along, we don't want to go to court, you're of age now where you could decide which parent you want to go and live with, please tell us now, what's your choice? Like, that's a lot to put on a 14-year-old, but so I matured really quickly, and I've always had to kind of think like an adult. So yeah, I guess it's beneficial in the sense that I learned a lot at a young age, and I definitely hold a lot of guilt from types of decisions like that I made, because then relationships are always kind of based on those decisions. But anyways, so one could imagine.
I want to ask you about that. And,
yeah.
you know, because I know that there's going to be parents watching, and for sure I'm curious about your take from it, from a 14-year-old. That's a big decision for a 14-year-old. And even though I have a 13-year-old that he thinks that he's, you know, like we all thought at that age that we're adults, that we are able to make these big decisions, but you're still kids. You're still kids. Now, do you think that was a fair decision to be putting on, like, do you think that the way that is set out is actually the way it should be?
Absolutely not, which is why when I finally found my husband, Jeff, and I knew pretty much from the moment we started dating that we would be together forever, we still took the really long road, long engagement, long till we got married, longer before having kids, just to really make sure that we had that solid foundation, because I would never want to put, and I know divorce happens, and I'm not saying that all divorces are a terrible thing. I think most of them are a very good thing, and who knows, things could change and maybe it won't work out for us. But I just tried to avoid that at all costs, because it was just such a horrible thing I had to go through. I think back to Christmases, and I don't remember, you know, what Santa brought or what we ate and all the rest of that. I remember the arguments over which house we're at, and, you know, till what hour, and the battle between, you know, where the children are supposed to be, and making the kids choose because the adults aren't mature enough and they're too selfish to figure it out on their own. So that was definitely hard, and it just kind of destroyed my mother and my relationship for years. And to rebuild that is really hard. It was kind of, you're damned if you do, you damned if you don't. Like, you have to upset someone. And the really awful thing is that it was just me that had to choose. My brother had left by that point. And then it separated my sister and I. So we were in different households from 14 on, which also isn't fair. You should keep the siblings together. So anyways.
So do you think it's fair to say that maybe they should wait till they're older to make that decision? Like 16, when you're able to drive a car?
Yeah, I think 16.
You know, when you're, you know, not in a you're not a legal age to drink, but you can drive a car.
Yeah.
You
or
know,
maybe
get your license.
Yeah, perhaps wait until the youngest child is also of age of 16, and then you could work it out together and kind of keep, because you need a partner in crime, and you need somebody by your side. And my sister and I have a very rocky relationship for a multitude of reasons, but I think one of the reasons is that I lived with my father and she lived with my mother, and then we became more like these two people that never got along. So of course we're going to have problems, right? So yeah, pretty fascinating.
So, you know, so your struggles and your challenges growing up, they have really made you the responsible, driven, caring, kind person that you are. I mean, I look at that and I kind of looking everything that you've accomplished, and people that you surround yourself with, and how open and honest you are about that. I think that's the beautiful gift, is that
Thanks.
you do share that freely.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's good. I speak a lot about my family to a lot of people that I'm close with. And I think it's really good to share these experiences, because misery does love company. And when you share that, and you talk about how you overcame it, and then you find out so much about other people, and you find out no family's perfect. We were just, you know, dysfunctionally functional, if that makes sense. And so, but that really gave me drive to move out of the house and go on to university. And there's a lot of times where my parents, they had good intentions, but they drew from their own experiences, and they said, you don't need to go to university. You can just go to the community college, or you just high school education. We have great jobs and we're doing fine and we have a great life. And why do you need to bother going off to university? And then fast forward years later, when I graduated, they're taking credit for the fact that, you know, we're so glad that we encouraged you to go to university and get a good degree, kind of thing. It's like, what? So that's where I talk about the memories, and we all kind of imagine things differently. So yeah.
So let me ask you, now we're so focused on career paths for women, finding mentors for women, champions, doing things like this where we're sharing stories and experiences that can help another woman on her journey. So let me ask you something. Who did you have back then to help you navigate that?
I get that asked a lot. And honestly, I think just friendships, surrounding myself with like-minded individuals. I was never the cool kid at school. I had lots of, friends in drama, creative minds, and people who also came from families that were just, a bit blended and a bit different. And so you just draw on other people's strengths and no matter what situation you're in, you could always find somebody who is in a way worse situation than you. And so you just always look at that silver lining. And probably because I was just I was different than a lot of people in my family. Like, I joke that my siblings went to jail and I went to university, but in fact, that's kind of what happened, right? And so I was kind of the black sheep and different, and always called, uptight and too serious. And these things that were labeled as negative have really benefited me in life. So I'm grateful for, and I think my parents did the best that they possibly could have done with this situation when we were growing up. It was a different time. And they had a lot of pressures too. And the fact that, a single mother raising 3 kids, working full-time, trying to go to school herself to get some college education, that is not easy. And I definitely didn't make it easy for my parents looking back. And I feel very guilty for not being a little bit more helpful during that time. Like, why can't you just write a check? I need this, right? Like, kids just are kind of clueless to that. So.
Oh, the conversations we could have. We could have a whole other talk just about our kids and really about the struggles of that. I mean, I'm a single mom. I've been on my own since my son has been 7 months. So I know
amazing.
exactly
You were
what
amazing.
you're talking about.
And so, I drew from this I saw people who I actually didn't want to aspire to be like, working at a gas station and seeing these people that day in and day out, they just come to work, they have no inspiration, nothing driving them. And I thought, that I can't be like that. I need more in life. So when you asked me kind of who were my mentors and who I surrounded myself with, I think I noticed things that I didn't want to be like, and then tried to change to get there. And my biology teacher is one person who was incredibly inspirational. I've tried to find him online and I haven't been successful, but he was Mr. Leflar. I took
so Mr. Leflar, if you're listening,
thank you so much. You were an inspiration.
Right? This is great. I like the opportunities where you're able to give these people a shout out because they have no idea how they impacted your life. So that's really fantastic.
Yeah, and I'll just tell a quick story about him. He was fantastic. He taught the advanced placement biology class in grade 12, so you could get credit for first year university by taking this class in high school. He was quite tricky. We would take the practice tests for the advanced placement, and if you scored a 3, 4, or 5 on the test out of 5, then you would get credit for first year university. But if you got a 0, 1, or a 2, you did not get credit, and then you would just have to go take all your regular classes. Every single practice test we took, he told us we were getting 1s and 2s, when in fact we were actually all getting 5s, but it just drove us to work harder, study harder. And so I was learning things in my last year of university that I had already learned through his high school AP course, which is pretty phenomenal. So pretty tricky and amazing.
That is tricky, but it certainly helped you sort of move leaps and bounds through university and gain confidence. Because one thing that we all talk about, I'm going to ask you about that confidence piece. And do you think that you would have had the confidence that you do now if you didn't go through those challenges? Definitely not.
And I lacked so much confidence. And when I get asked, what is one piece of advice that you would give to, a 15-year-old version of yourself, or any young female out there listening, is just have that confidence. And the things that you think matter so deeply when you're young don't matter at all. And just be confident. And so somewhere along the way, I went from having no confidence to maybe having like a little too much and a bit of bordering on the side of arrogance. And I wish I knew the secret sauce as to how that happened. But you just kind of learn what matters in life. And confidence is such a hard thing. There's no magic bullet. It's just, believing in yourself. But I think now with all this mindfulness that's coming about, and the school curriculums and teaching more about confidence, because that wasn't something that we learned about when we were younger. It was just, maybe you either had it or you didn't, but you can work on it over time, but it definitely does take time. So, yeah.
And I think you can't actually, and I've often thought about the confidence piece, because when you try something new, whether you fail or whether you succeed, you're up for the next challenge. And it's the difference, and that's when you actually get confidence, is when you try something new. And then the failure becomes actually something that you learn from. Hopefully that lesson that you don't repeat, you just keep learning. But I kind of look at that confidence piece as, if you want to build confidence, be prepared to fail and try
Absolutely.
something different. And that's the only way that you're going to get confidence, by trying.
For sure. Yeah.
So I think that's really important for, us to remember, even for adults.
A good reminder for everyone.
Time when we're all just navigating through this, I call it the beautiful pause, or I say the beautiful pause, but it is the great pause. It's a beautiful mess. And it's really something that we're all on it together, and we're trying different things. We're just trying to make it happen. Yeah. So good nuggets to remember about being confident and just forging ahead. And I don't think you can be too confident.
Okay, great.
So don't knock yourself over that one.
Okay.
I think that's actually great for your kids, is that they see mom just going out and trying everything. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the projects that you've been working on. So, you just recently transitioned into mom at home. So you've taken off the corporate hat, and now you're staying home with kids. So talk to those listening. What was your role with the organization that you had? Because I certainly remember a picture where you were standing next to these great big motherboards, the mega boards. Like, I've never seen such a great big computer in my life. Yes. So let's talk about that experience.
Yeah, so from biology, I went into forestry and then into medicine, and that just seems so long ago. And from there, my husband, he was offered a master's position in Calgary in electrical engineering. So that made us move from Victoria, amazing Victoria, where we went to school, to Calgary. And we ended up falling in love with Calgary for a little while, and it had everything that we needed to thrive at the time. And the economy when we lived there was doing very, very well. Sorry, everyone now, but I even got a job in oil and gas for a little bit and was offered a full-time position there. And that same week, I was offered a full-time position at this tech startup. And so very, very different things, but at that time you could just apply for jobs and you just got them without any experience. It's just a very different world now. And we were very fortunate in our timing of having been in Calgary. But our hearts were in BC. And so we just had to make the move back to just a bit of a smaller place to raise a family. And so when I went to quit my job to move to BC, they said, why don't you just keep your job and work remotely, which was absolutely amazing. And when my husband went to quit his job, they said the same thing. And so we both worked remotely from Kelowna for Calgary companies for some time. He was laid off after that, but I kept my job and transitioned from one role to another for, I think it was 12 years in the end. And then I just kind of, maybe I acted rashly, but I said to my husband one day, that's it. Like, I can't take the corporate life right now anymore. It's horrible for my health. The stress levels were insane. When you have to, I had a really good friend that I worked with that I had hired. And then 5 years after that, I had to let her go. And it just devastated me. It was you have to act in the best interest of the organization. And, to this day, we don't talk. And if she sees this, just let you know that I'm sorry. And it was a really, really hard thing to do. And we had all these funding problems. And you're just responsible for so many people's jobs. And when funding crunches come and, the funders pull all your money, and then you're trying to figure out how you're going to make this all work. And I was away from my family all the time, traveling within Canada, flying like 80,000 kilometers a year for the last 3 years, which is just an insane amount. It's so unhealthy. You're drinking a lot because you're going out socializing, you're eating horribly, you're sleeping terribly. So all those things, and I'm an athlete and I like to, be active, and you're just sitting in a meeting for 8 hours, and then you hop on a plane and fly home for 6 hours, and then you get home at 2 a.m. and leave your keys in the door because you're just a space cadet. And then I have what's called the Ontario hangover for a few days while I try and get my clock back in, and I'm totally dysfunctional for my family. So all of that, I thought, that's it. I'm done with this. So decided to just quit, and so great that I have the supportive husband who was there to say, sure, whatever you want, Lindsay. So he's learned how to appease me. And so I thought, I'm not really sure exactly what I'm going to do, but if I want to do anything different, I need to quit my job. And then COVID came, and how perfectly timed could this be, where my 2 kids, so I have 2 boys, almost 8 and 9, and they're deep into their learning. And so I'm now a stay-at-home mom, and my dream really that I'd like to do is to open a science center in Kelowna. And so last year I attended a science center conference for North America and beyond, and trying to build out that network, because it's just, the city of Kelowna is, from what I've heard, they're very supportive. Everybody I've talked to around is very supportive. I want to get to know the people in my community because I've traveled so much and I don't spend a lot of time here. And we have some really great science and technology resources here, but a science center would be just absolutely amazing. And I really, truly believe it's what the city needs. And so I want to try and make that happen. But right now, had to hit pause on that one just to wait till things clear a little bit. Because if I did have a science center right now, it would be closed. So I guess the timing has all kind of worked out. Yeah.
Well, I love the path that you've been on. And I think it's, all those experiences. I think that when we look at all of the experiences that we do, they're all there for a reason. There's nothing there that's not supposed to be part of the journey where we end up doing what we're doing. Your experience through the medicine and the forestry and your love for the environment, and it kind of builds into that science and that technology. Totally.
Yeah.
Right. So the building and then the family unit is kind of just, for me, that's that beautiful fit for the science center, where it's just bigger than just, it's not just a job. You're creating something for the community, for the family, and learning and development. So enjoy your pause, Lindsay, because I have a feeling you have some long days ahead of you.
I do,
with that project, for sure. And we could definitely, as far as being one of our national ambassadors, the beautiful thing is that we get to build relationships across Canada and beyond, right? So there's lots of opportunities for that. But I just want to go back to that pause, because I think let's talk about this time right now. What is the perspective of this pause right now? Because there's people watching and listening, and you've left a busy corporate life. You're now here. You have dreams to go and do a crazy busy entrepreneurial life again. But how has this pause changed your perspective that might actually, how would you say, it's definitely going to be a big part of how you move forward?
Yeah. So I forgot before, to mention the company that I did work for. It was called Westgrid, and it was part of Compute Canada, federally funded. It was a partnership with all of the universities, and we helped university researchers get access to supercomputing, like cloud and big data and storage resources. So, and the training alongside of that. So anyways, yes. But in terms of COVID, my kids asked me recently, Mom, was it the same last time when we had this COVID thing? you know, like I had been through it before. And that just to me was fascinating. Like they, you know, they haven't lived long enough to have all these experiences. So they just assumed that we had been through this before, which is great because maybe we've fooled them into thinking that we have this handled and we've got this and we know what we're doing, when in fact we have no idea. So I make a lot of people angry by telling them that I've actually loved this time. I have been sleeping so much. I'm reading a lot of great books, listening to podcasts, and spending so much time with my kids and not having the stress of jobs, and then also doing a ton of volunteering and being kind of active in these various communities. And so, but I'm so fortunate that I'm able to be in this particular situation now, because I know the struggles of if I had to take a 50 to 60 hour work week and put that on top of what I would be doing right now, I don't know that I would have come through the same. So yeah, I'm very fortunate. And my husband was able to keep his job through all this. He's a web developer, except for the cruise website that he's been working on. That one, his hours have definitely been reduced to 0. But as for all the others, he is still going strong. So we're in a really nice position. And so earlier when I was talking to you, I started to mention this, that I have been suffering from horrible PMS, and it's actually called PMDD, or post, hold on, I'm going to find the
Well,
acronym.
you find out the acronym. I think this is really interesting about the pause, because, and I'll kind of share what I've been kind of learning is that, you know, everybody is going through this, even though we're going through this together. Everybody's mental health is very different. Everybody's work environment is very different. Everybody's stress level is very different. But one of the very, and you know, some people have lost loved ones, looking after elders, you know, and it's a really unbelievable time right now. And probably one of the most beautiful things is that we're all in it right now together. So even if you are in a good place, you're acknowledging the fact that maybe somebody isn't.
For sure.
Whereas before COVID, we didn't even pay attention to that somebody might not be in a place that we're in, right? Yeah. So at least now there's so much awareness for compassion and empathy for those that are around. But it also gives us time to sort of, you know, dig into sort of what's kind of fueling our purpose. For what sure. Doesn't seem right. And I think that's where we started talking about, you know, you said, now I've had time to sort of think about what's not feeling right in my body. And yeah. So if you found that, we thought that would be great information to share, because mental health is really important right now.
It is, yeah. And so right before the COVID situation got really bad, I could take an inventory of my life. You know, I have 2 amazing, healthy, this is where I brag a little bit, but I have these amazing children that are healthy and, you know, intelligent and just full of energy and delight and excitement. I have an amazing husband who you know, my soulmate, I love him to death. And I have this great career and experience and everything. And I don't even have a job right now. And I was still finding that every single month around this premenstrual period, I was full of rage and my mental health was horrible. And I would be so upset and I'd be crying over nothing. And I thought, like, what is wrong? Like, I can't even pinpoint. I have no stress to be able to blame this on anything. What is going on? So, and I spoke to my doctor, and she said that this is called premenstrual dysphoric disorder, so PMDD. And what it is that you get depression, irritability, rage, anxiety, and everything for about a week or 2 before your period. And you know, this women's network is a great forum to be able to discuss this, because there's probably so many people that are experiencing this. And so we talked about this for quite a while, and then she recommended that maybe I should try a microdose of Prozac, so an antidepressant, just in very small doses, just for that week where things were just so rough. And it was so neat that in my life I was able to carve out and recognize that there was definitely a problem. And before, I would probably just blame it on the stress of work or the stress of this or that. And without the stressors in my life, and I'm getting a ton of sleep and I'm healthy and everything. And I thought, you know, something's not right here. And so I've tried it for 2 months now, and I cannot believe how life-changing it has been for me. So yeah, just that whole 1 week of rage and bad mental health has totally gone by the wayside. And so it was definitely a chemical imbalance. And so I would encourage anybody who was feeling like during that particular week, like if you had to put that on top of all your stress of the work and the front line and you know, struggling family and everything, and put PMS on top of that, like it's enough to just make you like break down. So,
and who would have thought that that is actually something that we could find some solutions to, you know, because it's so underrated. What women do in our bodies, they're machines. Like birth, we do all sorts of stuff, right? But that is just one thing that I think, you know, everybody underrates the significance of what our body does and how it reacts and how everybody's different. So I'm really glad that you're able to share and talk about it, because it's something that, you know, everybody's like, oh, well, everybody has PMS. Well, no, not everybody has. It's like the baby blues, you know, and if somebody has, you know, postpartum, there's different levels of that, right? So I guess this is just one extra, you know, thing that we need to be aware of to talk about. And especially now, I mean, like you said, now everything is so under the microscope. Everything could be going tickety-boo and then it would blow up, right? And so let's be aware of what the possibilities could be. So the acronym again, for those that are listening or those that are watching, so they can look up their symptoms, they can try it out and say, okay, well, maybe it's that.
PMDD.
PMDD.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I loved your comment earlier about, even though I'm very fortunate in my situation, hearing even Angie Kim this morning when she was on the panel saying that this has been the roughest few months of her entire life, you know, that really resonated with me, because I do know what people are going through, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows over here. You know, it's very challenging keeping 2 kids occupied, being cut off from any sort of social, and I'm a very social creature. There's a lot of, you know, problems, but relatively speaking, I know there's a lot of people that are, it is, all the loss and everything. It's very, very dark and sad for a lot of people right now. So.
And one thing I like, you know, this is the Women of Inspiration podcast, and I always ask, you know, the question, so who inspires you? So, you know, the question I'm going to ask is, number one, what is your definition of a woman of inspiration first?
Yes, and so it is on the website, but if I can recall, it is someone who has passion, they're selfless, they, you know, they care so much, they are driven, they never get up, they have grit. An excellent book called Grit, and it's such a, you know, trending word, but to me it's just so absolutely important, that never give up mentality. And I'm inspired by people who, you know, they overcome any obstacle and anything just to, and, you know, all the obstacles in their way, they just kind of leap right over them, because they're so focused on the end game and the prize that everything else is just kind of in the periphery, and they just never give up. And, you know, hearing, for example, your story or any of the stories of the other national ambassadors. And I told you, when I got on that first call, I was just like, whoa, I don't belong in this room. These people are amazing, right? And I know that I do, because I do have that confidence, but you just kind of always, you know, you get that imposter syndrome, and you think like, these women are so incredibly inspirational. And I've worked in very male dominated areas, but I've had lots of male mentors and really very inspirational people. And when I once reported to 17 men at one time, and it was those 17 people that, because of the way that the boards all worked, it was those 17 people that they said to me, you know, our CEO has left the company. I was quite young at the time. I think this is 8 years ago. And they said, you could have any position in the organization that you want. You could be the CEO, you could be whatever, right? Like that, just them having that much confidence in me was really, and so I actually turned down the CEO job, and I said, I'll just do the finances or continue to do the finances or something. And then I stopped and I was talking to friends and I thought, do I really want to report to somebody and give up this great opportunity? And so I phoned my boss back and I said, I've changed my mind. I would like to be the CEO, right? But I just believe that I couldn't do it. Whereas all these other people who were so inspiring and who believed in me thought I could. So it's just, you know, if you're ever faced with, can I do this? Just believe that you could do it. And so I guess inspiration and confidence also kind of go hand in hand. Yeah.
And I love that, because the reason why I asked that question is because that is one of the top questions I always ask everyone. And I'm always actually really intrigued by the answers, because the answers to me are almost they mirror the person. Yeah. Yeah. Of all who's a woman of inspiration to you. It mirrors actually who they are themselves, right? Yeah. So you have grit. Yeah. You know, you never give up. Yeah. And, you know, it's always, and especially now, I want people to really realize that we all have that inspiring person inside of us. And it's because if we want to just keep pushing, it doesn't mean that we don't fall down. We don't, you know, get bruises on our knees and scrapes and, you know, we don't fail. It means that we just keep pushing forward. So I think that right now, why I thought it was so important to talk about the adversity, and thank you for being so amazingly open and honest about your past in your childhood, is, hold on, I'm going to pause. Okay, so now we're plugged in. We have some more battery. It's not going to die on us. I love computers and hiccups. And I won't edit this, by the way, because I actually really love the authenticity of the conversations. It should be like that. For those that are listening and those that are watching, this is how it is. It's real, right? These are real conversations. So I just wanted to finish my last thought on the woman of inspiration, and they mirror who the person actually is and how everybody has that ability to be a woman of inspiration. And the stories of adversity that we're talking about, you know, they're not smooth sailing.
No.
And right now, I don't think we can talk about smooth sailing at all. Everybody's pivoting right now. Everybody's just trying to figure it out. And there's going to be dark times and high times and everything in between. So I really am thankful that you're so authentic and honest and open about your story and your challenges, and even feeling that, am I good enough? And I want to say, yes, you are. And I'm so glad that you took that CEO job.
As am I. Yeah, I learned a lot, definitely.
How long did it take you? And the reason why I'm asking, this is probably the second time I've heard it this week, about somebody that was given the opportunity for a big job, or a big role, because they identified that she could do it. And they almost turned it down, just like you. Mm-hmm. So how long did it take you to learn that new role?
The organization was changing so much, and the landscape was changing, and it's still changing now. They're tearing down the national organization, building something bigger and better. And also at the time, I was the best suited. I had the ability to be able to work in a distributed remote environment, which is a really great asset to have, as we're learning now. And I knew the people. And so it was just building those relationships and building that network and what I found, and the advice I always give people, is I did all of the jobs that nobody else wanted to do. And then I learned the organization inside out by doing the jobs nobody wanted to do. And so I would, you know, edit the website. I would do things that are so far below the pay grade of what I was supposed to be doing. But then years later, I had secretaries from other parts of the country contacting me instead of their own CEO, asking if they would help me, you know, organize a meeting or figure out this video conferencing link or whatever, because I just learned it so much. And so maybe on the leadership side, that part took a bit longer to come around. I would say within 4 years, I learned a lot, and I grew a lot, and my leadership skills became a lot stronger. But learning the financials and the operational side of things inside out really helped for me to be able to, like, I've got this, I'm in a comfortable environment, I know the people, the players, and all the rest of that. And then I guess it's like learning a sport, like I learned the skills, And then I was really well equipped to be able to learn the strategy and win the game. So
Interesting. And you know what I love so much about this is people say, there's always that phrase that said a man will take on a job and they won't care if they don't know how to do it. Whereas a woman, we have to think about whether we could do the job. So I actually love hearing stories, how you're reaching, going, yeah, actually, I think I could do that job. Even though we may not have it all figured out, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because if somebody believes we can do the job and we believe that we can do the job, we can do the job.
Yeah.
So I really love the authenticity. And some people see women in these top leadership roles and they're like, they want to know how you got there and what it took to get there. And it's just like, you take the jobs that, like you said, are somehow below your pay grade. But if you learn every aspect of that business, man, that helps, right?
Yeah.
So,
and if you could just save a really busy person, you know, a couple minutes of time by you spending a couple hours, they may not feel appreciative at the time, but they are, and then they gain that respect. And so the jobs that nobody wants to do, I recommend just do them. You'll learn a lot. And it's been fun. Definitely fun. And I learned way more about computing than I ever had set out to want to learn. Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to remember that one for the memory bank, just saying, Lindsay. And for those that are watching, I'm sure there's lots of little ways and opportunities that you have to utilize your skill set. So I'm going to say offer your support however you think that you have that support, because there's a lot of people that need help and support right now. So reach out, and it's all about relationship building right now, relationship capital, building relationships, because it's like an elephant. People will not forget when you've helped and supported them through the challenge. So, important. Yeah. So we could probably go on all day, but I just have a couple more questions to ask. So you talk about, I'm a big supporter actually of the Support Her, which is, raising the profiles of the men that are champions for women, of course. And I know that you're very open to talk about your very supportive spouse. So let's talk about that role of, men championing for women. Like you said, you worked in environments where male dominated. So how important is it for us to move that needle to have those male allies beside us?
Yeah. So I've always worked really well with males. I find that the best possible scenario is where you have the gender sandwich, where you have male reporting to a female, reporting to a male, reporting to a female. And it's not to say, like, don't misinterpret this. I would really love to see way more women at the top of that sandwich. But because there are so few opportunities in life for women to climb that corporate ladder, sometimes people end up pushing each other off the rungs on the way. And there's been a lot of data and studies on this. And I'm a very data-centric person coming from a science background. So work really well with males. Always have had male bosses because it just seems like a lot of the people in it, but I work really well with them. And so, the chairs of my boards have always been male, and a couple of the situations that I've had at my job that have led to conflict have actually been with other females, to the point that once I had to file a harassment suit when I was bullied publicly in front of a room full of all my colleagues by this female. And which was a horrible thing to have gone through. But we have since worked it out, and we're able to be, colleagues and work professionally together, which is really great. But following that incident, I had a male colleague come support me and came up to me in tears at this conference right after it happened. And he said, I can't stand by and not do anything and let this happen. He said, I'm going to move towards changing the code of conduct for our entire organization to reflect what just happened, so that this never happens to anyone again. And so, and it was just so amazing that even though I went through this horrible experience, to see the support around me at that conference, and to know that I had so many people that cared so deeply about me and were willing to help me, was really great. And all the way along, like, I have all these amazing males that have always really supported me, and there's females too, but I've been really, really fortunate in the sense that my male colleagues are, I guess, just being in a research environment and and people know that there's a problem with the data with women, and they're just, you know, working that much harder. And my director of operations that I worked with for so many years, he back, you know, 12 years ago, I reported kind of up to him, and then the tables had turned, and now he reported to me in this particular role, which was kind of interesting to see. So always be really kind and great to everyone, because you never know where you're going to end up, right? But I remember one time he had said to me, Lindsay, no, we can't put out this job description. It's written very much in the sense that men will apply for it, and it's not written really well for ladies. And we're really trying to increase our female technical capabilities in the organization. And, you know, just like, wow, it's so great that I'm so fortunate to be surrounded by these people that are so forward thinking and realize that there's a major problem and we need to do something to change it. So
I think there's great opportunity right now. So as I talk to lots of leaders and leadership positions, and, you know, as I talk to male support hers, I think there's a really great opportunity. One of the missing links is, you know, that even in, you know, entrepreneurs and businesses, there's not a lot of women in those leadership roles that are able to provide the guidance. That's why it's really important to have the male mentors and advisors,
Sure.
because they can share their experience to actually mentor other women. So, you know, the sooner that we say, hey, this is a good thing, and really be okay to talk about that and not be embarrassed about having that support. I'm so much more encouraged to hear those positive stories, because I have got so many men that say, you know, I would help in a blink of an eye. Somebody needs help, I'll help and support. And I see that there's a shift that's happening. Me Too ended up kind of getting a lot of people scared. So when we launched Support Her, you know, we were starting to change that conversation again with that. So I'm really excited about that journey, because I think that's what we need.
Yeah, and I'm very fortunate in that I've had really great male mentors along the way. And there's this one story I like to tell about how I was sitting on an airplane once, because I've been on so many of them in the last little while. And I was asked by the flight attendant to change seats with this lady, because she was seated next to a man and she did not want to be sitting next to a man. And this man was with his wife, like there was nothing about him, but she just could not be seated next to a man. And I was very happy to change. It didn't bother me. But, you know, there's so many women that have had so many unfortunate incidents and situations when it comes to men. And I guess I'm just very fortunate that through my career and all the rest, like I said, it's the women that I end up in conflict more than, and I think I'm a very strong personality, and I'm kind of an alpha female. And so my husband and I always joke that my best friend is another strong female, and she was my boss for years. And yeah, we're the best of friends. And he says, I've never understood how that actually works, that the two of you are able to, you know, but we agree to disagree. And I'm so grateful for that friendship. And so, yes, I do have a lot of female inspiration around me as well, but I think I'm unique in the sense that I probably have more great stories to tell about men. And I remember once this man saying to me, Lindsay, your bio is horrible. You have accomplished so much. And what are you doing here? Like, we need to work on this, right? And so, you know, like, and talking me through all the great things that I've accomplished and how I need to, you know, sell myself a little bit better. So great stories like that I'm happy to share.
Well, I just love that, because as you know, I'm all about shining the light on women, doing incredible things with Women of Inspiration, of course. Like, we're really forging ahead with that, celebrating women across Canada that are making an impact locally, nationally, and globally, including our unsung heroes.
Yes.
And our medical professionals that typically don't get any sort of recognition for doing their job. And right now they're the real heroes on the front lines for us. So I definitely am looking forward to, you know, some changing the perspectives on things, keeping it positive, pushing forward. And I'm really excited to have you a part of the team. I just love your energy, your authenticity, and, you know, just tell it the way it is. You know, I find that very refreshing, and I think that we need more of it.
Yes, I can't wait to go and nominate all these amazing women of inspiration. I wrote my list today, and I went through my Rolodex, and it just, so many amazing people whose stories need to be told. So I'm really happy to be part of this, because honestly, I had never heard of the Universal Women's Network. I'd never heard of the Women of Inspiration, and what a huge gap in my knowledge. And so I'm really grateful to be a part of all of this and helping sing those great stories. And yes.
This is a heart for you, because I definitely need help. I need cheerleaders, I need supporters, and, you know, to help people spread the word. So I'm really excited to have such quality people that are dedicated and very curious and driven on our team, able to help us push forward. So thank you. But I want to say thank you for a wonderful interview. You know, I always have these interviews and I like to have a conversation. I have a few questions that I like to ask, but I love to let the story go where the story needs to go. And we covered so much about your story, about your career path, about, you know, what inspires you to push forward, you know, and your kids and your pause in this time, and it's wrapping it all up. We got lots covered. So Lindsay, thank you so much for being a beacon of light. And I'm so happy that you're with the Universal Women's Network as a national ambassador. Everyone, that was the Woman of Inspiration podcast. You can learn more about Lindsay and her journey on our website at universalwomensnetwork.com. So thank you so much for joining us. And
thanks for having me.
Nominate those women of inspiration that are inspiring you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
And you can stay on. I'm going to pause